The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus received the news of John the Baptist's death, he withdrew by boat to a lonely place where they could be by themselves. But the people heard of this, and leaving the towns, went after him on foot. So as he stepped ashore, he saw a large crowd, and he took pity on them and healed their sick. Then evening came. The disciples went to him and said, "This is a lonely place, and the time has slipped by. So send the people away, and they can go to the villages to buy themselves some food." And Jesus replied, "There's no need for them to go. Give them something to eat yourself." But he answered, "All we have with us is 5 loaves and 2 fish. Bring them here to me," he said. He gave orders that the people were to sit down on the grass. And then he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, raised his eyes to heaven, and said the blessing. And breaking the loaves, he handed them to his disciples, who gave them to the crowds. They all ate as much as they wanted, and they collected the scraps remaining, 12 baskets full. Those who ate numbered about 5,000 men, to say nothing of women and children. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Our Gospel today has a really interesting beginning. Most times when this text is read, we run straight to the miracle, correct? Because I mean, you don't get better than food sharing. In a Trini crowd, when food sharing, you know we have exactly what we want, what we need. That's us at our absolute best. But before we could get to the food sharing, we have something that is happening. When Jesus received the news of John the Baptist's death, John was killed. He was killed because he was a prophet. He was killed because he was speaking truth to the people and to the king. And because he was speaking truth, his truth was inconvenient, and he was imprisoned. And then there was a connivance of the dance, which then caused his head to be given on a silver dish. Now, Jesus knew that John was his forerunner. And he was his forerunner in more ways than one. Not just to announce the good news to the people, to prepare a way for the Lord to come, and to prepare the hearts of the people to receive his coming, but he's also the forerunner, because as his life ended, so Jesus knew too, his life would end. So this was a very somber moment where Jesus is filled with all of the anguish over the death of his cousin and this forerunner. We know when he came to Lazarus who had died, Jesus wept. So his heart is moved deeply with pain, with grief, with a future, with questions, with everything. Andrew would have been a disciple of John, and Andrew would have been in deep grief also. And all he wanted was to go away and have a little time by himself with the 12. So they could talk about John. They could reflect together. They could pray together. Their hearts were filled with pain, with questions that had no answer, with fear. Because as John went, so every single one of the disciples could also go. That's great fear that was part of what was happening in a little community at that time. And he probably wanted to settle them, but he probably wanted to settle him too. Just some time with Abba, to ask him, okay, tell me, what's happening here? What's the most beautiful thing for me is that Jesus and a little community filled with pain, with grief, with anxiety, with fear over where they are, what is happening, what's happening in the society, what's happening with the king, what's happening in so many ways. Goes to this lonely place, and when he arrives there, they have a pile of people there waiting on him. They saw him take off, they knew where he was going, and they went ahead, and they landed there before him. And so he landed to a lonely place to meet a pile of people. Now tell me what your reaction would be. What's your reaction? No, give me your heart. I want to know what your heart would do then. Huh? Turn the boat around and head somewhere else? Huh? Because if he wept over the death of Lazarus, he's weeping over the death of John the Baptist. He's in pain. What do you do? What you do when you're in pain? And that's what the text is speaking to us today. What do you do when you're terrified and frightened? That's what the text is speaking. What you do when it seems like the whole politics is so uncertain, you're not sure what will happen next. That's what the text is speaking to us today. And I want to lead you through what Jesus does. Because the first thing he does, when he stepped ashore and he saw the large crowd, he took pity on them and he healed their sick. I want you to hear this. He is feeling his own pain. He sees the crowd. He sees their need. He sees their confusion. Because the crowd too saw John the Baptist as a great figure, as a prophet, maybe even the Christ. And the crowd too is in this turmoil and agony. And what Jesus does, he is first moved with pity. That means his bowels are moved inside of him towards the people to give to them whatever it is God is asking him to give. This is a significant movement. When we are filled with pain, with anxiety, with fear, with grief, what is our reaction? What is our reaction? Jesus' reaction is to be pressed into service, to love deeply, and to see the need of the other before he looks at his own need. He's seeing the need of the other before he looks at his own need. He's seeing the pain in the other before he starts addressing the pain in his own heart. He's giving love to the other before he attends to the need that he has for a little bit of love from the Father. And I think that this is important for us right now as a people. I think this is important for us as families. I think this is important for us as a nation. There is pain. Yesterday we celebrated African Emancipation Day. There is pain. We have a history that is steeped in bloodshed. The native peoples who lived here, whose lives were wiped out. There's a East Indian people who came, and they too didn't get the great deal because what they were told and what they received is two totally different things. There are people from Asia Minor, from Lebanon and Syria, from China, from Portugal, from Madeira, from all over the place who came for all kinds of reasons. And they have their own pain too. But as we celebrated African Emancipation Day, we have to see the pain of a people who were enslaved and were given freedom, but the freedom was only on the books because they were not given the freedom to be able to buy land and to be able to build things easily, because that was curtailed. So there's pain. But what does Jesus do with the pain? He doesn't start a competition of who is the biggest victim. He doesn't start a competition, well, I have more pain than you. He doesn't say, well, I was closer to John than you, so I feel in this more than you. He's pressed into service. He's moved with pity. His heart is burning and is broken, not just for his pain, but because he sees the pain in those around him, those in front of him. And he puts his pain aside and starts to serve by teaching and healing. And it says, and he healed their sick. He served them so beautifully, so deeply, so amazingly, that when the disciples started catching themselves, evening had already come, and time had passed. And because the time had passed, now we have a new problem. Because we're out in the middle of nowhere. They had no shop around the corner where you could go and get something. And the people have been here for the whole day. Nobody ain't eating nothing. And he just preaching, teaching, and healing. And the disciples break the rhythm of the ministry to say to him, the people are hungry. Let us let them go to the villages to buy something for themselves to eat. Practical, eh? You don't find it? Very practical, not so? Real practical. Because you can't keep doing this for another day, The people will start to drop down. But the practicality allows Jesus to carry his love to the next place. And to teach us what we do with our pain. To teach us what we really do with our pain. He then says to them, he says, there's no need for them to go away. Give them something to eat yourself. When I read this text, something turns in my stomach every single time. I have nothing to give these people, a whole multitude, and you want me to give them something to eat myself? What am I going to give them? And he said, well, what do you have? Well, all we have with us is 5 loaves and 2 fish. And now you see the difference between Jesus and the disciples. 5 loaves and 2 fish could feed the 12 and Jesus. But it can't feed the multitude. And they're studying, they know this man so good, that if he hold on to what we have, we will get nothing. And so now the question is really, how do we hold on to what we have so we could eat and let them go to find something to eat for themselves? And it's not as altruistic as it looks at first, because it's really self-preserving. Whereas Jesus is giving himself generously, completely, fully to those who are in pain, the disciples are now starting to strategize on how they're going to hold on to what they have so they could eat, so that the others could go and find something and their food supply will not get disturbed. And Jesus gives us the most beautiful teaching. He said, tell them, sit down. Bring what you have here to me. He took it. He blessed it. He broke it. He gave it to them and said to them, share this out. Now you have to hear the Eucharist in this. You have to hear the Eucharist. On the night before he died, Jesus took bread. He said the blessing. He broke it. He gave it to them and said, take this, all of you, and eat of it. You have to hear the Eucharist here. But what he's doing is he's teaching his disciples to become who he is. You can't hoard for yourself so that you will have what you need when the people have a need in front of you and their need has to become before yours. Give what you have. And he's teaching them a radical generosity now, that even in your pain, even in your need, even in your scarcity, even when you can't see how to feed yourself, bring what you have. Bring what you have. And they do. Give them that, eh? They do. Bring what you have. And when he takes it, blesses it, breaks it, and gives it to them to give out, in their hands, the bread and the fish are multiplied. In their hands. They saw the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. They saw it feeding and feeding and feeding. And at some stage, they would have said to themselves, this is not normal. At some time, they would have paused and said, no. This is 5 loaves. We saw it. We know how much we had. At some time, they would say, this is not normal. And at some time, in their giving it out, in their distribution, they would have realized that this is a miracle beyond anything they could have imagined. And when they realized that, they would have also realized their own folly because they were hoarding for themselves. And what Jesus was teaching them is how to be completely generous with what you have. The miracle of the loaves and fish is seen in the tradition in 2 ways. John Chrysostom talks about it as a miracle of sharing and also a miracle of multiplication. At this stage in our country, we are looking at what we have. And we don't have enough for us and for them. Correct? We have enough for us. Not enough for us and for them. And we're starting to draw camps into the us and into the them. And Jesus is teaching us there are no camps. There's one people. And everybody who is there is part of that one people. Stop dividing up the people into us and into them. And start recognizing that if we believe, if we believe that Jesus Christ is risen from the dead, if we believe that, if we believe he is alive now, then we must also believe that we have more than enough to feed us, them, and whoever else he sends. We must believe that it is he who is the source of the food. Isaiah says in that beautiful line, come to the water, all you who are thirsty. Those who have no money come, buy corn without money and eat, and at no cost wine and milk. Why spend your money on what is not bread, your wage on what fails to satisfy? Listen to me, and you will have good things to eat. Brothers and sisters, we have tried to negotiate between being a disciple and being a citizen and creating what we need for this and that, and many times we are acting out of our pain and out of our shame and out of our difficulty, and we're creating some really intriguing patterns among ourselves. I'm begging that we recognize they have no us and them. All they have is us. We have 5,000 square kilometers we live in. It's a real tiny space, you know. It's a real small space. It have enough space in 5,000 kilometers for us and them. It had to become a space just for us. And if we would dare to take the gifts that we were given and give it to him, he would bless it. He would break it. He would give it, and they would have more than enough for everyone. And they will have baskets and baskets left over. That's the economy of the Eucharist. That the more you give yourself and the more generous you are in giving yourself, the more God blesses that, and then overflow starts to happen because people start to experience what they didn't think was possible, and out of what seemed like scarcity, there's an overflow of grace, of love, of abundance, of care, of kindness, of beauty, of food, of celebration. And that overflow is what the kingdom of God looks like. And that's what God is inviting us to. Each of the beautiful races that have landed in this little 5,000 square kilometers have a gift. They have loaves and fish, each one. Each one. And Jesus is asking, would we dare give that gift? In the Synod final document, it talks about the exchange of gifts, that the real beauty of the kingdom is when we recognize the gifts we have and we're willing to exchange gifts with others who have different gifts. Would we dare to offer our gifts and exchange gifts in this beautiful little land that we have, so that as we exchange gifts, we find that overflow starting to happen, so that there is more than we could ever imagine? As long as we want to keep dwelling on the pain, and it is real, and focusing on that first, we turn into the eye, we look at ourselves, and as long as we keep looking in at ourselves, we can't see him. And if we can't see him, we can't offer the gifts. And if we can't offer the gifts, he has nothing to use to multiply. Each one of us has gifts to offer. It isn't as if the disciples had nothing to start with, 5 loaves and 2 fish. It's much. But it's all he needed. What are your loaves that you have to offer? What are your fish that you have to offer? How can you start looking beyond the pain, the suffering, the fear, the anxiety, the worry, the terror? How can you start looking beyond that? How can we do that and start seeing the need that there is there? There are more people hungry in this country than I could remember before, even in our most difficult days back before we had oil. I don't think we had the levels of hunger that we have right now. In the most difficult days when we didn't have 2 cents to rub together, and nobody had any pile of money and nobody had any big set of extras, we had more than we have now. Because back then, everybody shared with everybody else. And the neighbor child who was bright would come by the neighbor and have a dinner, because that neighbor realized if this one got food, well, they will take their family out of poverty. And the school books that would be handed, and the clothes handed down, and the sharing that happened, that we did so naturally and normally. And Christ took it and he blessed it. He broke it. He gave it. And he multiplied it. And we always had more than enough. There are 2 economies being presented before us right now in our world. The scarcity, where everybody better hoard for themselves, and you better hold on to what you have, because nobody ain't giving you nothing. Or the Eucharist, where you take your loaves and your fish. You give it to him, and he will take it. He will bless it. He will break it. And he will give it. And we will all have more than enough. Amen.